I long for this time of year. The hot summer days will soon give way to cold, crisp nights. The vibrant green leaves will soon fall from their perch above the trees and collect underneath into warm and soothing reds and oranges. Children will trade in their water guns and their swimming trunks for warm jackets and hot cocoa. Yes, summer is ending, but with it comes the birth of a new season. Football season. Now, fall brings about the best season of all. Football season. The game where two teams fight it out over the span of a 3-hour period for supremacy. Now, if you're a hardcore fan like myself, then you want to do more than just watch the game. You want to live it. You want to breathe it. You want to revel in it. To put it bluntly, you want to immerse yourself in it. And now there is a way. There is a way to completely immerse yourself into the world that is the National Football League. It's called fantasy football. And every year, players get to live out their fantasy of owning their own NFL franchise. In a fantasy world, so to speak. Now, Michael Fabiano, who is the fantasy editor for NFL.com, says that a good percentage of the fantasy owners out there are not as hardcore into the sport. These are casual fans. So if you're a casual fan or a hardcore fan, like myself, then I'm going to teach you the basics of how to play fantasy football. Now, the first thing you need to do, you need to find yourself a site to play on. NFL.com is the obvious choice, but there are others. Yahoo.com has one. FoxSports.net has one. There are literally thousands of sites out there. Just go ahead and Google it. You'll find the site that works for you. Now, once you have your site, you got to pick a team name. This is where you can let your creativity flow. This can be almost anything, and I do mean almost anything. Just let your personality show. Let the people see who you are, because hopefully this will be the name that people will be cursing at the end of the season. Excuse me. Now, once you have your team name and you've got the site that you want to be on, you got to draft your team. Now, there are two ways to do this. You can auto draft, or you can do a live draft. Now, Fabiano says that in the growing phenomenon of NFL or of fantasy football, that a lot of casual fans just play for the fun, and they aren't aware of the intricacies of how the experts draft their team. That's why auto draft is a really cool feature for people starting out. What it does is it has a pre-ranking order of players. Now, this list is pretty much ranked from what the experts believe to be the best down to the worst. Now, if you let the computer draft for you, that's what the auto pick does. The computer will pick pretty much based off that list in order. Now, the problem with auto drafting is if you haven't pre-ranked it based on what you like, then you may miss out on a player that you actually wanted. Now, the live draft is my personal favorite. It's what I do every year. And it really allows you to live the fantasy of owning your own NFL franchise. With the live draft, you get to pick your team. Every player on your team, you get to pick them yourself. And you do it just like you did when you were kids out on the playground. One person goes first, and then another, and then another, and everyone picks their players until the round is over. And then it starts over. Now, the rounds usually 14 rounds, and you pick one player per team. Now, once you've drafted your team, you have to select your starting lineup. Now, your starting lineup is the players that'll score you your points. Now, there are two ways to score points in this league. There's the cumulative point scoring system and the head-to-head or competitive point scoring system. Now, the cumulative is pretty simple. You score your points for the team for the games that week. Highest score is the highest ranking in the league. It can fluctuate from week to week. Now, competitive scoring or head-to-head scoring, it's kind of more of the realism of the NFL. You have two teams based on your leagues. They match you up based on your schedule, just like in the NFL. Higher score wins. Your rankings for the league are based on your win-loss percentage. Pretty simple, right? Now, back to your starting lineups. These starting lineups, like I said, are the players that are going to score you your points. Now, each starting lineup generally consists of one quarterback, 1 to 2 running backs, 2 to 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, a kicker, and a defense. Like I said, it varies from site to site, but this is generally the norm. Now, these starting lineups are going to be the ones that are going to score you your points. Now, for example, if I pick up Clinton Portis as my running back, who plays for the Washington Redskins, for every touchdown that he gets, my team gets 6 points. Okay? So, now that you have your starting players, things always happen. Things happen to your starting players. So you got to have players that'll back them up. Now, these players are known as your bench players. These players are going to be sitting just kind of in the background in case you want to substitute people out. You know, say a player gets hurt one week and you need someone to fill that position. Well, you have a bench player that's going to be able to take him out or to take it over for him. Okay? But just like in the NFL, things happen. People get injured. They have bye weeks. They don't play. People get cut. You know, there's a multitude of things that happen in the NFL. And sometimes it happens to your starters and your bench players. That's why they have something called the waiver wire. Now, the waiver wire is just like the NFL's free agency roster, free agency wire. There are going to be players that haven't been picked up by any team, and you're going to be able to pick those players up. Just like in the NFL, you can trade between teams. So let's say that my buddy has a player that I want, and I have a player that he wants. We can trade players. It's just like in the NFL. Now, you're going to need the right mix of drafting, trading, and free agency pickups in order to truly be competitive in the world of fantasy football. Now, I've just given you the basics. Once you've kind of figured out your own strategy, just kind of make it your own. Once you've done that, then you too will be able to live the fantasy that is fantasy football.